World of Warcraft isn't using generative AI. We talked a little bit about this IGN interview just yesterday, but it looks like we missed a little bit of something on some AI takes from Mr. John Haidt. Now, a lot of people have been worried about how AI is going to affect gaming, maybe take away some artist jobs, but Mr. Haidt wants to assure you that it won't happen in WoW. So it looks like they do use AI in WoW based on the answers that John Haidt gave in this interview, but they're not using it to create anything, just kind of eliminate some of the monotonous tasks. So when John Haidt was asked about generative AI versus traditional AI, he had some interesting takes on it. He said, "We have used machine learning to help do things that people either can't do or are very cumbersome to do." He said, "The fitting of armor on characters, you see how many different characters we have? Our artists used to have to go back through and they'd have to build it for a human, and then they'd have to go back through and retrofit these things for all the various body shapes, horns, big snouts, and tails, and all of that." He goes, "That is just not particularly fun work for them. A few years ago, we said, can't we use machine learning to help at least get it to a point where 90% of the work is done for them and then have it fine-tuned? And when we went back and looked at it, it actually worked out really well. It allowed us to use a lot of different armor. The artists love it because, oh God, thank you, we got rid of that grungy part of what we're doing." So that's nice. That's a good way to use AI. See, some people look at AI as the devil. I think AI can be used in a lot of good ways to kind of, like here, eliminate some of the cumbersome tasks that come along with anybody's job. Now, in terms of using generative AI, basically, or any other type of AI, Blizzard is using AI, and they're going to continue to do it. They talked about using AI in NPCs, especially Exile's Reach and in the upcoming Delve system in the War Within. So this is an interesting take as well, because I'm very excited about the Delve system. We know that Blizzard's been upping their NPC tech, especially with the new dungeon runs that you're able to do with your NPC followers and things like that. So John Haidt commented on this as well. He goes, "My mom is an aeronautical engineer, and my dad was a fine artist. So I have that appreciation for the creative process. What an artist goes through in their imagination, I think the artists on the team have a fear that AI will deploy to take them out of a job, and they certainly don't want their work to be used without their permission. And so I think we're all sorting that out, the right issues and how far do we use this technology, but we're not using it. We're not using generative AI within WoW," which is interesting. I'm sure a lot of game companies, you know who would have loved generative AI? Bobby Kotick. Bobby Kotick would have loved generative AI because he could fire an entire staff and just have generative AI make games for him and make money for him, and he wouldn't have to pay it. It's slave labor, essentially, and he'd be all about that. So he's gone, and it looks like John Haidt has an appreciation for artists, so that's good. The way I think AI can be used generatively is like for monotonous things, again, like trees or something, right? Have an artist draw a tree and then have generative AI kind of tweak the trees a little bit, so that way you get a big variation of trees and then plant them out in the world, all over Azeroth. Those are the ways that I see AI being used. Whether or not AI will ever completely replace artists, I'm not quite sure. Again, AI, the way it currently stands, does use artists, it uses their work, essentially, and then transforms it a bit and then puts it back out there. Generative AI is creating things, that's the whole generative part of it, but it does use a lot of background knowledge that already exists, and part of that is other artists' work. There's controversies out there on how AI will be used in the future, but it looks like John Haidt, being the son of an artist, he has an appreciation for artists specifically. So for now, World of Warcraft still using the real deal, still putting artists out there. Sam uses generative AI to make himself look less bald. Don't I wish? I have used the bald filters before on certain things, on whatever Snapchat stuff. Oh my God, my future looks bleak, let me tell you. Crafting gear weaker in Dragonflight Season 4. Oh my God, what a common Samiccus W. For somebody who doesn't participate in the crafting system, let me tell you, this brought a smile to my face. 6 item levels under Mythic Track is now the new norm. It looks like it used to be 3. It looks like in Season 4, it's going to be 6 item levels lower than what Myth Track would be, whereas currently it's 3 item levels lower. So it's not completely useless. Still, on that track, better than Heroic, I would say, but it's going to be less than what your Myth Track would be. So 6 item levels was 3. Not a huge nerf, but it is a slight nerf to what you're seeing out of crafting. Me personally, I don't participate in crafting. I don't really care for it. So for me, hey, it's good. It's good. And that's what matters. Is it good for Sam? That's how I look at every piece of news I read. Is it good for me? It's a good one. Moving on. Noble Flying Carpet drop rate increased. It looks like the 1% drop rate has been increased. Hello, adventurers. We appreciate your feedback on all the Noble Garden activities. We have recently released a hotfix that increases the drop rate for the Noble Flying Carpet mount, and we also added a bonus to the mount drop chance on the first defeat of Dayton Swiftplume on the account each day. Good luck on your hunt. That's great. That's a good thing. One thing I said before when I saw the 1% drop rate, I was like, damn it, Blizzard, don't do this this to the people. When you got a 1 week long event, please don't put things with super low drop rates. It's a killer. The one great thing about the Hearthstone event, whether you thought it was buggy or not, whatever, the best thing about it was the items that dropped from it had a decent drop rate. So basically, if you participated in that event a couple times, you got every item. So that was one of the really good things about the Hearthstone event. It was fun, and that's what these events should be. They should just be fun things that you get out there and do. You get the things that you wanted for doing it, and then it moves on, right? It's only a week-long event, but putting something with a 1% drop rate and only giving people 8 days to get it, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's pretty disappointing for a lot of people who really want it. Now, for me, the flying carpet, it's fine. It's a cute little mount, but it's good to know that the chance of it has been increased, at least on your first kill. Undocumented Season 4 Mythic Plus changes. Abilities now scaling with Keystone level. I read through some of these, and let me tell you, I absolutely hate it. I absolutely hate it. Increase the invincible drop rate, don't I wish? Yeah, this is bad. So I'm going to read through some of these, and you can see a common theme here. It's basically going to put the players on blast, put healers on notice, and it's going to make things very difficult as keys scale here. So for Algothar Academy, we see the Mystic Blast from Spellbound Scepters now cannot be kicked and can only be stopped. With Arcane Rain being removed, it moves the stop that players were using from the rain to blast instead of leaves kicks for their mobs. So basically, you can no longer just interrupt that thing. It's going to make things harder. You're going to get more intense blasts of damage, and that's a common theme here. Azura Vault, unscrew crystals now spawn closer to the boss. This is a good one. Better, a little bit better, maybe. You're going to have to move the boss as a tank, probably. That's the way to avoid things like this. For Brackenhide Hollow, I will tell you right now, this is probably going to be everyone's least favorite dungeon. It's going to be absolutely horrible because look at this. The withering damage, which is a ticking dot, which I hate, first of all, from the start. The damage has now been tripled and scales with your key level. Holy crap. This is basically everything that we've ever hated about any affix dot. That it includes ones in past that have been removed because players hated it so much. So now in Brackenhide Hollow, you're going to have this withering dot 3 times scaled to your key, blasting the raid, blasting the party, and now everybody's going to have to make sure that they're healing up. The Blood DK is going to have to heal his ass off, and the healer, mind you, there aren't any healers wanting to play this shit to begin with. Now we're going to have healers pumping as hard as they can to get rid of this dot, especially if you're doing like a plus 10 key, which is like a 20 today. This is going to be an absolute damage fest. This is going to be horrible. Halls of Infusion, the Primal Tsunami phase is at 60% rather than 50%, so you're going to get that earlier. No-Coup Defensive, another, complete L here. Desecrated Ohana now casts a new version of Rotting Wind. This was previously a frontal cone that could be avoided. Now it's just an AoE dot that will be applied to the entire party. Another problem for healers to deal with. Something that is less avoidable. It just sucks. It's really nice when a mechanic is avoidable, when the player's skill comes into the play and you can actually get around things. This is just going to be an AoE dot. Another ticking shitty dot, just as Brackenhide Hollow was. As if No Coup Defensive wasn't already complete shit when it came to tanking. I hate that thing. Now I'm going to have to worry about this damn dot that's unavoidable. And healers are going to have to deal with it too. Ruby Life Pools, Flameshire now has a 15-second cooldown instead of 12. Uldaman, the Lost Dwarfs, Fiery Surge, damage now scales with key levels. So it seems like this is a common theme here. Burning Pitch now scales with key level. It seems like Blizzard really wants the keys as you move up in the key levels to really hit harder. They want things to get significantly more difficult as you move up the key rankings. And difficulty is fine, but what I really hate is these dots. These ticking dots that are unavoidable that just really put a hamper on the it's almost like a DPS check, but it's a healing check. It's a healing check on the party, and essentially it's going to lead to a lot of frustration, a lot of deaths, a lot of unavoidable deaths. No matter how skilled you are at the game, this dot is going to find you and tick your ass off, and it's just going to, I think, lead to a lot of frustrations. I felt like Blizzard had learned their lesson when it came to Mythic Plus, and not basically putting these kinds of things in the game that are just making Mythic Plus extremely difficult, because the last season was very popular because it was easy. It was the easiest season we've seen in a long time. We'll see if eventually they kind of nerf these things. They've been taking player feedback, but for now, Mythic Plus is about to get a lot more difficult. If you are chasing the good boy, this achievement got a little bit easier, so there is a lot of achievements you're gonna have to do to get this thing, but the good thing is Blizzard has listened to feedback here. Primal Storms are part of the achievement. You have to get into the storm, which leads to a bunch of achievements you gotta do in Primal Storms. They're gonna spawn a lot more, so now there are 2 spawning at a time. Previously, people were getting frustrated with this because there was only 1 spawning and it seemed to be in the same zone all the time. Now they're gonna spawn 2 at a time, and Blizzard put in a hotfix to make sure that they are 2 different zones every time. So there's going to be more Primal Storms out there. You'll be able to complete this achievement quicker and get your good boy leash.